Hi, folks. You're with Tacitus Today. Tacitus Today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the hiring processes, particularly ones sort of built around a very drawn-out sort of process of multiple interviews, multiple layers of psychometric and aptitude testing, role-playing games, all this sort of stuff. Now, you would think, I don't believe in these things personally, but nonetheless, where you have a disconnect between the people doing the hiring and the expertise that they're attempting to hire in, so say they want someone who's the rocket scientist, the people who are doing the interviewing and going through the administrative mechanics of the interview process, they know nothing about rockets. They may not even have an IQ of even 100. They're likely to be just DEI flunky affirmative action bureaucrats, and they're just processing the paper. And they've got their little checklist of questions and answers, and they go through that. Now, because of this huge disconnect between the hirers and the skills they're attempting to hire, there's been a switch to reliance on psychometric testing. Now, these sort of things, in the days of, say, the Wadsworth test, that sort of thing, they were quite expensive to administer, and it was almost, I don't know, close to a monopoly or a cartel sort of pricing structure. So if you were going to put these so-called psychometric type tests, aptitude tests can be rolled into the middle of them as well. They were quite expensive. It's only the most senior positions, quite rightly, by the way, if you're hiring a top executive and you want to sort of put them all through the same ringer, at least so you get a baseline of the outcomes of them doing these tests. But today it's quite different. These psychometric tests you can subscribe quite cheaply, really, or you can subscribe in a way where it's $100 per time you use it, like a site license thing with software almost. So it's quite easy or inexpensive to do. A lot of these things are even online now, so someone doesn't have to come into the office or come into some examination room or something like that. So these tests have got used quite widely now. And so will you get a better hiring decision the more interviews you put somebody through and the more psychometric tests you want them to do, or aptitude tests and role-playing tests, all this sort of stuff. I think this is really done for the power trip entertainment of the hirers who are just low-quality flunkies at the end of the day, and they want to just project their power onto these applicants and just show we can make you jump through hoops, we can make you tap dance, we can make you do anything we want, and so I think it's more a power trip. But nonetheless, these sort of things exist. Now, let's suppose you're hiring for maybe not too senior a position. Maybe it's something that's between 30 and 50%, pays 30 and 50% more than the average wage, and you're going to make someone go through multiple interviews, then a matrix interview, all the people they may interact with in the organization. They're going to do a group interview, 10 people might interview. Then you've got to do the psychometric test, then an aptitude test, maybe another psychometric test. Then they say, okay, well, you've made the final shortlist. Now you've got to do a role playing, sell me this pen type thing, or okay, the black lesbian has come in and she says she's being oppressed. What do you do? And there's all sorts of combinations of role play. A lot of them now are social justice type subject matter. Anyway, these are the things. Now, if someone who's capable of getting a job and has actually got a real skill set, then they're probably not going to want to go through that unless there's some tangible benefit at the end, like it's job for life, or there's some huge bonus payout, unless there's something really there. Or maybe it's around the corner from where they live, or so. Unless there's something really there, no one's going to go through that bullshit. So the only people who are left at the end, or as that process moves on, the only people left are the least employable, and so the least employable people have got nowhere else to go, and no one else is going to give them a fucking job. So they go through this process and the humiliation and degradation that from my perception at least, is involved in it. And imagine having to get up in front of 10 people, got no idea what your job is anyway, and you have to role play on some preconceived notion that some angry black lesbian sort of dreamed up after having gone through the gender studies course. I mean, excuse me. So anyway, do they get a better quality of hire through it? Well, of course they don't. But one of the criteria that, and this is one that, and I'll come back to this in a minute. I was been talking to a couple of HR sort of heavies recently, and one of the benefits is that they have a low staff turnover, and because the people are so unemployable and so useless and so pathetic, because they've had to grovel their way through such a humiliating hiring process, they'll never get another job, so they don't leave, and they stay there until they die in the seat. So, but this is considered as an accomplishment. Well, we get a low staff turnover because look, we put all this time and effort into hiring, so no one ever wants to leave because we hire but we've got the right people. We've got the right mix of people, and so they never want to leave. So okay, then, well, I guess that's fair enough. And these are in quangos, government departments, particularly, things like big multinationals and so on. So, okay, well, I do get that, that you've got a low staff turnover simply because you hire people who are so fucking useless. No one else ever wants to hire them anyway. They don't want to leave because they never think they can do any better than what the job they've got. So now, are these people high-performing folks? Well, obviously not. So is low staff turnover a sign of accomplishment or achievement? I mean, it can be, but not when you've lowered the bar to the bottom, the ground level, and then claim that, well, that's an accomplishment. Now, in terms of others, again, into this mix, I was talking to one of the HR heavies, and she herself is an affirmative action hire, and so her attitude or her view is that if somebody really wants the job, they'll endure any humiliation, even 1 million interviews or 1,000 aptitude tests or something. They'll endure anything, any privation at all to get the job. And so we only hire people who really, really want the job, and that's a good thing, she asserts. So, okay, well, again, that's really back to the other thing of you're the only people who are left at the end of this process are people who are unemployable anyway. So how is that an achievement? So they really want the job because no one else wants to give them a job. So they're taking the only job they can get. And if that means, again, humiliating themselves, they do. Now, the one of the officers or one of the HR ladies who puts these tests on people, she fancies herself, she's a fucking god. And the fact that she can stand there, telling people they have to do these tests, you have to grovel, you have to do this, look, you have to jump through these hoops for me, jump through it again, sit, stay, come. And she talks about these people like they're dogs, like she's training some dog in a fucking dog park. That's how she talks about them. And she's the big sort of grand, ringmaster, cracking the whip there in this bullshit 3-ring circus. So, and that's very much her view. She thinks she's doing good work, the way she was, the enthusiastic, and I made them do the test 10 times over, and very much wanting to, and I had to show the male applicants that we don't tolerate misogyny here, and she's talking like that. So again, it's a lot of these things not applied, like two-tier justice. They're not applied evenly. So I got into this conversation because I looked at the amount of people that spoke English, very much obviously spoke English as a second language. Well, how did they get through this process? There is no way they could have got through the process. They couldn't even understand the questions that are being asked of them and the aptitude and psychometric testing. They couldn't have done a role play thing. Oh, well, it's different if they don't speak English as a first language. If they're black lesbians, we don't require it of them because that would be discrimination and racism. So in the end, really, the only people who are required to go through this nonsense are straight white males in particular, white people generally. But even then, some of the women that are putting through these tests start crying, for example, in the role play. or start crying in the interviews. Oh, it's all right. It's all right. You don't have to do that. That's fine. But they wouldn't tolerate that behavior from a man. They say, well, you're a wuss. We don't want you. Unless the guy was gay, perhaps. So there's very much a different way of treating applicants, depending on whether they're brown or black or white or gay or lesbian or something. So anybody with reduced social power based on the ideological totem pole of what social power supposedly is, they get a free pass where they either don't have to do as much or don't have to do it at all. And she was saying sometimes in the group interview where there's like 10 people interviewing the person, they may decide to hire the person on the spot if they're from a minority group, a brown, black, lesbian, or something. So what are these psychometric tests proving? Or I don't know if they're proving or justifying anything. Again, you could use it as a general baseline. People within this range of results tend to do the best, but if you put in, say, people who are going to energetically pursue the company's goals and objectives, for example, and they come highly skilled with credentials and accomplishments, that sort of stuff, why would they subject themselves to such a bullshit scheme run by schoolgirl children with attitude, who just want to try and pretend that they're important and so on? You wouldn't. So they're not able to attract the best quality people, or even, I would argue, the people in the mid-range. So I would suggest that any drawn-out interview process, really what it says is that the hiring people haven't got a clue what they want or what they need, or they're engaging in childish games of, again, the dog in the dog part, sit, stay, come, and going through that sort of type of scenario in order to feel self-important and godlike. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.